Hey, hi Sana. How are you?
Hello, Kedar. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good too. Thank you for asking. So, Sana, I know you have applied for the role of a data scientist with us.
Mhm.
So, I just wanted to ask you a few questions and then we'll take things from there. So, why don't you start off with a
Mhm.
brief introduction and what does your profile hold currently? And then we'll take things from there.
Okay, so as you already know, my name is Sahana, and I'm currently pursuing my fourth year of MSc Data Science from Concord Institute of Technology here. It's a 5-year integrated course. And according to my curriculum, I'll have to do a 6 month internship in between, which is why I applied to the company. And regarding my profile, I've done a 4 months internship previously in a company called Unmeasure.ai. I worked as a full stack data science intern. And to talk about my projects that I've done, I find one project that is really notable and worth sharing with you, which is the image classification, leaf image classification project. So this is all about me.
Okay, so what was that project about?
Yeah, this is a leaf classification project where so the main objective of the project is that generally in the industry of like tea and food industry, especially in tea manufacturing industries, what happens is that there is a classification going on which is done manually depending on the tea leaves that arrive. So depending on like each tea leaf, there's a quality assurance person who like manually goes through each carton of leaves, and then he manually sorts them in three different classes of high quality, medium quality, and low quality. So this generally happens manually in most of the tea industries. But the aim of this project is to automate that process and build a sort of intelligence where the model is able to correctly identify the species of the leaf, which is essentially this one. But this can be scaled or modified according to any sort of business need. But the general idea of the project is to understand the structure of the leaf and then like classify the leaf in an automated process. So that is where this project comes into picture.
Okay. And so how was the data? How many images were you playing with? What was that like?
Okay, so the data that I obtained was open source, and the data that I had also had images, but it also had a CSV file, which was which the CSV file was generated wherein there were about 193 columns, which correspond to the 193 pixels of each images. So all the images were in the dimension of 193 cross 193. So there were about 1 lakh rows because I had 1 lakh pictures. So with this CSV data, since it was already available for me, I used this data to build my model.
Okay. So was the 193 columns explicitly mentioned with respect to the business ends, or were they just labeled as columns? So how did that
So
go
there were
about?
just pixel 1, pixel 2, pixel 3 until pixel 193. And there was another column called species. So which if there were around 99 classes, if I'm not, sorry, yeah, there were around 99 classes, if I'm not wrong, of different types of species of, leaves. And they were labeled against each row.
Okay. So I think you said at the start that there were three classes in which you wanted to classify this, right?
So usually that is what happens in the industries, like they classify between high, medium, and low. But this is a very generic species of leaf classification project because this can also be modified to any sort of tea industry or anything for that matter. The three classes that I told you was just to, make you understand how the context of
Okay.
this project is.
So how many classes were there in your problem statement?
99 plus.
Okay. So it was a okay 99 classes, and was it all balanced?
Yeah, it had almost equal number of data points for each class.
Okay. Cool. So now, what was your approach towards solving this
Okay,
problem?
so initially, since the data that I got was already in CSV format, I checked for missed values and other pre-processing steps, and the data was already clean since it was already a formatted one. So I did not I was not I mean I did not have the need to do a lot of the pre-processing steps and the imputation and stuff. So I started with building ML models, which are the machine learning models, and I built somewhere around 6 to 7 models, and I experimented on each of them. I did hyperparameter tuning, and I tried to optimize the model as much as possible. And then I obtained the best results out of those models. And then I also tried the convolution neural network. I tried to build a simple CNN model out of this. But I found out that I was able to extract a lot of information, and I was able to get a lot of accuracy from the basic ML models itself. So I did not go with the convolution neural network. I stuck with the best ML model that I used.
Okay. So you use the data as it is, right? Like the 193 pixels as it is that was used. So did you try stuff like dimensionality reduction so as to kind of do that, or was it a kind of a black box kind of thing wherein it did not matter what kind of which variable was important, which variable was not important? So how did that pan out?
Okay, yeah. Since I think you already partially have the answer in your question. Since there are the 193 features that are supposed to be that those are not exactly features in this project. They do not have any importance on itself by itself. Like each pixel does not carry like a huge importance by itself. I think all of the 193 pixels carry equal value. So I did not try to approach any sort of dimensionality reduction or feature selection process anyway here, since each pixel is important, and while we and using these 193 pixels directly into the model will help understand the data more, and it will help the classifier to learn better. So which is why I directly use it.
Okay, so let's assume that still, let's take a hypothetical scenario wherein, let's say I use any dimensionality reduction. Let's take a very simple one. Let's say PCA, I applied on these 193 columns, and let's say I take the first 50 odd principal components. Okay, or whatever number you want, it does not matter. My question to you is, will that affect the model? Whatever you have built using, so what I'm trying to essentially say is, you on the one hand, you have this model set that you have built using these 193 features, right? And on the other hand, you have all these models which you have kind of built through PCA. So how would you go about comparing and playing around and trying to decipher which one is working well?
Okay, honestly, I did not try PCA for this project, but now we have told I'm trying to give a thought about it. So I think PCA is a dimensionality reduction technique, wherein like the whole data that is now across 193 dimensions is shrunken to 50 dimensions, and the PCA algorithm also makes sure that there's no loss of information while shrinking this, unlike any feature selection algorithm where you randomly drop a column. So I think there will be an effect on the model with respect to the accuracy and stuff, but I don't feel there will be a lot of difference. There won't be a marginal or a huge difference in the accuracy. I think we can develop the accuracy by scaling the model better. But of course, I think it still depends on how much extent you reduce the dimensions.
Okay. Okay, we'll revisit this a bit later, Sana. So you said that you applied 6 to 7 models. So how which models did you apply?
Okay, I initially started with k-nearest neighbors, and then I tried linear SVC, and then new SVC, and then I built decision tree random forest as a bagging algorithm, and ADA boost for boosting algorithm, and I also tried linear discriminant analysis.
Okay. So and how did you compare all of them? What was your metric for comparison?
Now, since this is a classification problem, I used the accuracy score for comparing all the models.
Okay, so you at the start mentioned that it was a balanced data set, and that's why I think you used accuracy. So if this was an imbalanced one, what would have you gone for?
I would have gone for measures like precision, recall, F1 score, and depending on those metrics, how precision and recall acts on each class, I would have taken a decision from that.
Okay. And did you check the ROC curves and the AUC values for this, or was this all based on the accuracy numbers that you've got?
No, it was all based on the accuracy numbers. Since it was all balanced, I did not go to the other ROC and AUC curves.
Okay. And was cross validation put in place, or like 5-fold, 10-fold, or was this just on one simple split?
Yeah, it was based on one simple split, but the split that I did was a stratified random sampling split, wherein I made sure that data from each class is gone into the training set as well as the test set, because I did not do a random training set split, because since we have 99 classes, we have the possibility of like losing a few classes while we classify, or there might be a bias in classifying into training and test set. So I use the stratified random split while like dividing the data set into a train and test data set.
Okay. So the question I have is, you said you used AdaBoost, and at the start as well, you said that you preferred ML model over a CNN. So which ML model performed the best?
Yeah, I obtained an accuracy of 98% from random forest at the end.
Okay.
So before I did any sort of hyperparameter tuning, I found that LDA performed better with an accuracy of somewhere around 90%. But after I after I did the grid search and after I fine-tuned each model, I found random forest to be the best one with 90% of accuracy.
Okay. Can you tell me what's the difference between random forest and bagging?
The random forest is a bagging algorithm.
Correct. So bagging. So why don't we call random forest bagging itself? There must be some difference, right?
Because it builds decision trees. Bagging is the concept wherein when you have a set, let's say you have 100 data points, and bagging is a concept wherein you build like 10 models for 10 different data points, and then you accumulate the results of those 10 models. This concept is called bagging. But when it comes to random forest, we build a lot of decision trees in place of those models, which is why I think it's called random forest. Like you're building a number of trees, so it's called random forest.
Okay. All right. So let's move on. So you said you applied AdaBoost algorithm. So how does AdaBoost work internally?
Okay, so AdaBoost is basically a boosting algorithm. So if the difference between bagging and boosting is that in bagging you build the models parallelly, as in like let's say you have 100 data points, you give 10 data points each to each like different models, and you run them parallelly. Each model does not affect the other model. Like say you have model A, model B, model C, and model D. Model A does not have any effect on model B, and model B does not have any effect on model C, and so on. So in simpler terms, in bagging, you create all the models parallelly. But in boosting, you create all the models serially, as in one after the other. So AdaBoost is one such boosting algorithm wherein you create a sequence of decision trees with a node with a level of depth of 1, which is why they are called stumps. And when you create each of these decision tree one after the other, you assign weights to the data points, and depending on the weight of the data set, the other model. I mean, let's say you have stump A, and stump A has let's say stump A classifies let's say you have 10 data points, and let's say stump A classifies 7 data points correctly and 3 data points wrongly. Now you assign weights to those 10 data points in such a manner that the 3 data points which are wrongly classified have higher weights, and the 7 data points which are correctly classified has lower weight. And depending on these weights, you again train model B, wherein and there is weight parameter also taken into consideration. So that's how the models are built one after the other. The weight parameter that we add to the data plays the vital role.
Okay, so what's the difference between XGBoost and AdaBoost?
In XGBoost, I'm not really sure with how the XGBoost algorithm works, but with XGBoost, I think it's extreme gradient descent, but in AdaBoost, it's adaptive gradient descent. I'm really not sure about the difference.
Okay, so what's adaptive gradient descent?
In adaptive gradient descent, what happens is that the adaptive gradient descent, what happens is the weights that we assign here are adaptive to the previous models. So I think that is why we call like adaptive gradient descent. That's why it's called AdaBoost.
Okay. So you also mentioned that you applied other models, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and you applied LDA as well. So how does LDA work?
So LDA is something similar to PCA, wherein this is also sort of a dimensionality reduction technique. But what it does is that it makes sure that the distance between it makes sure that the distance between the classes it separates the classes more from each other. So which is why we sometimes use this in classification problems also. So basically how LDA works is that first you create a within class scatter matrix, as in like within each class how the data is scattered, and then you create a between class scatter matrix, which essentially explains how the points are scattered in between each classes. And with these two matrices, you build a eigen, and then you put it into an eigen equation, and then you draw a eigenvalue and eigenvector of which the eigenvector should be the one which has the most highest corresponding eigenvalue. And from this eigenvector, you multiply this eigenvector with the original data, and now you have the transformed data.
So what's an eigenvalue and what's an eigenvector?
Okay, so let's say you have a two-dimensional space, and let's say there's a point in, or let's say you have a two-dimensional square in a if you have an x-axis and y-axis, and you have a square in between. So if I consider a point in the x-axis, let's say that's point A, and let's stick on to this point A. And now if I transform the whole square into a rectangle, and if I scale it up to like 2 units above and 2 units below, now the data is transformed, but the scalar and the vector quantity of point A remains the same even after the transformation of the data, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that corresponding value is called the eigenvalue, which is the scalar of point A, and the vector of point A is called the eigenvector.
Okay, fair point. And coming back to the LDA part, you said you were getting 90% accuracy on LDA before doing hyperparameter tuning using grid search. So, so what happened? Random forest suddenly got an accuracy from, let's say, 80% to 98% hyperparameter tuning.
No. The scikit-learn library that I used initially builds only like 30 decision trees. Now, when I increase the number of decision trees inside the forest, I got better accuracy.
Okay, so here's a question. So does random forest overfit? Or did it overfit on your data?
No. Decision tree.
Okay. So,
which is why we have random forest. Like plain decision tree is the model. Random forest, we try to build data and trees, random thing. My decision tree model was performing, which is why I opted for random forest.
Okay, cool. That's it, Sana. Thank you. And I'll let you know the feedback for this. All right, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.